This app is an AI-powered critical thinking assessment that's based on a custom case study that I've generated at teachingwithcases.com. That site basically lets me generate a case study in any topic that I want that's also tailored to my learning objectives. But now what I want to do is I want to go further. I want to assess my students' understanding of that case study. So what this tool does is I've given it the questions that I want to ask my students about this case study, as well as my suggestions for the ideal response, and in some cases, a scoring rubric on some of these questions. When a student responds, they'll first get AI-powered feedback based on what I've indicated is important, and then potentially they'll get a score. And so you can imagine in a course, I could actually put together a handful of these and offer them asynchronously as a way to strengthen my students' critical thinking skills through self-practice. So if you aren't familiar with how to get started building MIcroApps on your machine, just go to the link on the screen and you can see those instructions. So we're going to have 3 phases in this assessment. I want to ask my students to summarize what the case study was about. I want them to identify 2 risks that are presented in the case study and present some mitigation strategies. And then I want them to brainstorm about the case study's central problem, which is how to scale while retaining a strong customer experience. Now, let's put in those prompts and the rubrics for the 2 questions that I want to use rubrics on. And I want to point out a couple things. One is that in the feedback section, we're telling the AI about our ideal answer, but we're asking it not to penalize the student for having other ideas that might differ from ours. And also the feedback and the rubrics are fairly tightly tied together. What we're giving feedback on, in other words, is the same thing that we're scoring the students on. And then finally, when we add scoring rubrics on the first and second phases, what we're scoring is we're scoring easily measurable, discrete things, basically to make sure the student did the work and it didn't just give a throwaway answer. All right, and finally, let's add the fields. And each of these fields is actually very similar. It's just a long text area with a label, which is the question text. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-fill in these values, which obviously you wouldn't do if you were delivering this to students. So let's save this and we'll take a look. So again, these answers are pre-filled, but let's see if it gives us the feedback that we want. So I want it to critically analyze the student's response, but ultimately be encouraging. In this case, we are checking a score to make sure the student gave a solid enough answer. That looks good to me. And the second question, again, we have feedback and identify that we've given it 2 specific risks that are grounded in the case study and provided mitigation strategies. It scored that appropriately. And then the third one, we just want it to give us some feedback on our brainstorming. So this looks good to me. And again, this is a nice low stakes practice opportunity. I might put several of these in a course as I get students used to interacting with case studies, or specifically with case studies in the format that I like to teach. And that's why it's nice in this case to be able to define my own case studies, my own questions for those case studies, and my own suggestions for feedback on the student responses.